Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go.
Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. So many times I hear from our guests about how important relationships are in their lives, whether that be with their spouse, their kids, their friends, their customers, or their business associates. What I've experienced over the years is that many times those business associates and customers become friends. Back in the early 90s, our advertising agency started working with a small group of country banks in West Central Missouri. As they grew, they added talented people to help support that growth and attract more of it. One of those people is our guest today. I first met David Pearce when First Community Bank brought him on and introduced him to us as their new marketing director. He became our client contact, and he was absolutely a joy to work with, and he was good at it. After 18 years with the bank, he then leveraged his experience and knowledge into government, where he ran and was elected as a state representative 3 times and then as a state senator twice. He now handles governmental affairs for the University of Central Missouri. Over the years, I've seen David from time to time, and he has always been the gracious, personable person I met all those years ago. He's a savvy professional with great insight and advice, and I'm pleased that he is with us on our show today. Welcome to Outdrive, David.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Pleased that you are with us today, and I think we have a lot to talk about. You and I go back a couple of minutes, and certainly I want to talk about marketing and public relations. You're a professional at it. You've been doing it a long time in a variety of different roles. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the importance of branding and, maybe a little bit about personal branding. I want to talk about what you're doing now at the university. And of course, we want to talk about rural America because that's, where both of us started and where we continue to live today. But before we get to all that, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me on, Cliff. It's a pleasure to be a part of the podcast. We go back about 29 years that we've worked together. At that time, I was in charge of marketing at First Community Bank, which was a bank out of Knob Noster, Sweet Springs, and Windsor. And you served as our marketing arm of the bank. And so we go back a long way. Since that time that I worked at First Community Bank, I spent 18 years there. And then in 2002, I ran for state representative, mainly in the Warrensburg area. Served 6 years in the House of Representatives, then a Senate seat came open, and I ran for the Senate in 2008. I was blessed to be elected twice as a state senator. The first term was the 31st Senatorial District. The second term was the 21st Senatorial District, and I really enjoyed that experience serving in the legislature for 14 years. Following that, I spent 3 years in the state treasurer's office, which is a really good fit because of my years of banking. I was able to put that to use. And then since 2019, I've worked at the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg. Government relations is what I do. So I get to interact with the state and federal legislative groups, and then also cities, counties, chambers of commerce. So that's what I do. I work for the most part on campus in Warrensburg, and I really love what I'm doing.
Well, I think you're in the perfect role. I really do. Looking back at your career, there has to be a lot of satisfaction in your heart and mind about what you've done and where you've been and how one thing sort of led to another. But let's go way back. I know you grew up out in the country just like I did and were involved in 4-H and FFA. How do you feel like those organizations maybe shaped the David Pearce that we know today?
Those are 2 great organizations, and I was blessed to be involved in both of them. My dad, Clarence Pearce, was the local ag teacher. So as a very, very young kid, I went to FFA meetings, FFA activities. That was just what we did. And so I got to look up to FFA officers and what they did as kind of a role model. And then my mom got me involved in 4-H when I was 8 years old. and the Good Neighbors 4-H Club, which is still in existence today. And I think one of the first offices I had was song leader of the local 4-H club. And so that just taught me the ability of getting up in front of people, having the confidence to do it. Gosh, you make mistakes. Sometimes you get a little embarrassed or whatever, but you get back on your feet and do it again. Quite honestly, when I was in the legislature and I had some really, really tough hearings or tough speeches or tough inquiries, internally, I would say to myself, I've been preparing for this day since I was 8 years old. And that would just give me the confidence to do better, to excel, and then also to not let that 8-year-old boy down. So I guess that's what 4-H and FFA taught me.
Oh, that's great experience, great life lessons. Did that experience sort of influence you going to Mizzou, which is a big ag school, and studying ag journalism?
Yeah.
Why that career path? What were you thinking? Where were you going?
Well, in high school and college, I worked in local radio. I worked at KOKO in Warrensburg as a disc jockey, as a farm news director. And then I was blessed to work at the Brownfield Farm Network while I was going to school at MU. And so kind of at that time, when you're in college, you're exploring possibilities. What's my fit? What can I do? So agriculture journalism, broadcasting was one way I wanted to go. And politics and government was also something that I had an interest in. So I kind of worked on both of those as a young adult, kind of when I was first starting my career.
So how did you find your way to First Community Bank?
I was the director of the Warrensburg Chamber of Commerce. I was there in 1988 through 1994. I guess one of the highlights is we renovated the depot in downtown Warrensburg. It was closed up. It was ugly. It was awful. And through community efforts, we were able to raise $250,000. And that depot still stands today, and it's being used as the chamber office. Greg Bynum, who was the president of, at that time, Bank of Knob Noster, called me up and said, would you ever consider a career in banking? And I really had not that much experience in banking, but I had experience in our community and working with people and promoting. And so Greg and I talked, and then I joined the Bank of Knob Noster, which soon after that became First Community Bank. So I guess someone saw what I was doing, they liked what I was doing, and then asked me if I wanted to come on board.
The highest compliment you can receive, right?
Well, I've always heard that your next job offer is based on what you're doing today. And so as opposed to worrying about things, just focus on where you are today and do a good job there. People will notice, and a lot of times it will pay off.
Well, I did not realize you had the radio experience that you do, but it makes all the sense in the world. You have a radio voice. You always have. And I guess I should have recognized that.
Well, some people say I have a face for radio, Cliff. Heard but never seen. So
they're only joking. They're only joking. So I didn't realize, thinking back now, that you were at First Community for 18 years. Boy, those years just flew by.
Yeah.
What were some of the highlights of that? Talk about some of maybe the lessons you took away from that experience.
Of course, in banking, one thing you have to deal with is confidentiality. And that's one thing that as I went into politics that you learn very quickly. A lot of people share a lot of personal information. And for the most part, you hear it and you forget it. It somewhat pays to have a short memory. So I learned that. I also learned the importance of having a clear, concise message. And at First Community Bank, we had merged 3 banks together, Bank of Knob Noster, Chemical Bank, and First Community Bank out of Windsor. And so it was very important to have one identifying logo. It was very important to have one message. It was important to have one person or maybe a couple people speak for the organization and not just have everybody saying whatever they wanted. And that really has been very important. And I think that's important for everyone to realize. It's important to have an identifying brand, whether that be a logo or a slogan, have one person that speaks for the group and have a consistent message. And so that's one thing I've learned.
Do you feel like that you have used those lessons in your personal branding as well?
Oh, absolutely. It came time to run for office, spent a lot of time on developing what the brand would look like, what our logo would look like. We didn't really do a slogan, but what the key messages were and stay on those messages. And then, it's important, when you're a candidate, obviously you speak for yourself. And so there's only one spokesperson or whatever, but it was very important to keep on brand. And I use the same logo all the 14 years that we ran. So
solid marketing right there.
it was marketing. And we did a lot of parades. When you're running for office in rural Missouri, you go to every parade. I thought we had a really good logo. And so we put it on the front of a T-shirt. And the person that was doing the T-shirt said, it'd be really cool if on the back of the shirt, if you did the logo backwards, so it almost looked like the logo was going through the person's body. And so when people would walk away from you, you'd see the logo backwards. And so we did that. And that got a lot of conversation over the years. Did you know your logo is backwards? Or, hey, that's really cool. But, they were talking about it. And as people walked away, they were looking at the logo, trying to figure it out. And so that's, I think, what you want in marketing, that people pause, that they just don't forget it, that like, hey, why the Pearces put that backwards on their shirts, And we would do that we had bags and stuff like that. So one side would be straight and one would be backwards, but it was just an identifying thing. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, something to be known for. And, in this day and age, it's hard to stand out. There's so much clutter, there's so much distraction, there are so many different media elements and all that. Having something that's recognizable that you can have a little fun with, absolutely is brilliant.
Yeah. And you said the word fun, whether it was in the bank or in the campaigns, you got to have a little fun. I mean, it's so much work. It's so much energy to do things and do it right. So why not have some fun? Why not throw in a pizza party? Why not bring candy? Why not take the afternoon off? Look for things to reward yourself or reward your coworkers, your volunteers, your customers. It's not all work. You got to have some play in there as well. So when you look back, you can think, yeah, that was a good time.
It was good times. Well, first, I want to thank you for all your years in public service. I mean, that is selfless, when you put government ahead of yourself, and you did such a great job representing, I think, rural Missouri. And certainly there are some nice sized cities that were in your geography. And I know you made decisions for the good of the whole, but you were a great representative for us out here living in the country. Tell us what it's like working in the legislature for those who, have never had the experience or maybe even haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, they say it's a part-time citizen legislature, which means you can have other jobs or you're not in Jefferson City year-round. But for the most part, it's pretty full-time. And basically, you're on your own. There's no one in Jefferson City that tells you what you have to do. There's no requirements about how many bills you file or what committees you're on. So you're on your own. So you can be as busy as you want to be, or you can do nothing when you get down there. To me, I kind of wanted to be as active and proactive as possible and to represent the folks back home. So that was always what I would try to think about. And then also that when I'm done with this legislative thing, I don't want to look back and have any regrets that, gosh, I wish I'd have filed more bills. I wish I'd have been more active. I wish I'd have gone to more meetings. I wanted to say that, I left everything on the field. I did everything I possibly could while I was in there, because you're just given a short amount of time in that office. So make the most of it.
Well, and I think you did. So what might surprise us about what goes on in Jeff City?
In the Senate in particular, just how busy you are during the legislative session. There would be times where during the Senate session, I might have 3 meetings or 3 hearings at the same time. And so how do you do that? You have staff. Fortunately, texting was available my final years in the legislature. So you could kind of have staff sit in on a meeting, and then when it was time to show up, you could. But just how busy you would be and just how many meetings and how many folks would come to visit you. And so just how busy you would be while you're in Jefferson City.
Interesting. Because I guess just thinking about it, you really don't know, but that makes a lot of sense.
Right. And then at night, you might work all day long during the legislative sessions. And then in Jefferson City, you might have 5 social events that evening. Dinners, socials, things like that people from your home district were there. They wanted you to show up. And so I also realized the importance of making the effort to be there. And sometimes even if it's 10 minutes, but just to say, hey, you made the trek all the way to Jefferson City to see your senator or your representative. And so the least I can do is stop by and what's on your mind and let's visit for a few minutes. I always thought that was important.
Well, and I guess knowing you as I do, being there on time was probably pretty important to you as well. I noticed you were exactly 9:15 this morning getting on the interview. Is that a life lesson you picked up over the years?
Yeah. Being on time is so important. And quite honestly, I've known a lot of politicians who are habitually late, who that's just their norm. And I just vowed I'd never do that. And I learned that very early in my career when I was director of the Chamber of Commerce. I had a very good president, Clarence Bailey. So he was my direct boss. He directed me as the director of the chamber. Clarence once said, David, you're doing a great job. I like what you're doing. You represent us well, but you're always late. And wow, that really hurt. That sunk in. And up until that time, I always thought I can write one more letter. I can make one more phone call. I can do one more thing and get there just a few minutes late. And quite honestly, maybe people think that's great that I'm so busy. But it really taught me from Clarence Bailey's eyes the importance of being on time. And especially if you're in charge of things, gosh, you've got to get there early. So yeah, from that time on, I've always been there on time or early. And I have Mr. Bailey to thank for that, 35 years ago. It was honest with me to tell me something that I needed to improve upon.
And he complimented you as he did it.
He did. And he also did it. It was just the two of us. And so that was another thing that I've learned is you praise in public and criticize in private. And so when I've had the opportunity to supervise people, I always try to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's great advice. So looking back at your career path, things from my perspective seem to really fall into shape. And I know you had a plan. You wanted to get into public service. As you were nearing the end of your final term, because your term limited out, unfortunately for all of us, what kind of thoughts, were you having about where your career might go? Was that pretty much already kind of in the sights?
That was an interesting time. In politics in Missouri, we have term limits. So when you're done, so it's not like, I can do this as long as the voters keep electing me. So I knew that on January 1st, 2017, my term as Senate would be over. And so probably that last year, I looked at opportunities, maybe run for a different office, maybe what I'd like to do. I vowed to myself that I would not leave the Senate early. So I wanted to serve until the very end of my term. I'd seen some of my colleagues who left early, and that was just something that I didn't want to do. Kind of the way I looked at it is I went out and campaigned for this job. I begged for their votes. And so I just didn't want to leave early. I applied for a couple of things toward the end of my year in the Senate, and just to kind of see what the job market was and things like that. I was not interested in relocating from my home in Warrensburg. It's home. I like rural Missouri. I like smaller communities. So I was not interested in relocating. And so those are some things to talk about. In politics, you also have to look at, am I electable for this certain office? Is it the right time? Is it the right place? And so at that time, I didn't see that there were any offices that I would want to run for, or that maybe I could be elected. So I made the tough decision of not running again. And it's really like a lot of people, I think, when they're nearing retirement, when is it time to leave? When is it time to get out? And then what are you going to do when you leave and when you retire? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? So those are some tough decisions, a lot of soul searching, a lot of praying. Talked with my wife, Teresa, a lot. And so those were kind of the thought processes that went in when I was nearing the end of my legislative term.
Well, you ended up in a great place, the University of Central Missouri, and you're doing what you've been trained your entire life to do, which is government affairs. Tell us what a typical day looks like for you. What kind of things are you working on?
Yeah, well, probably like you, Cliff, there's no 2 days that are alike. I mean, they're all different. And I like that. Some people don't. Some people want to know exactly what they're doing. They want a routine. They want to do the same thing every day. I don't. I like to have variety. And a lot of it depends on what time of the year it is. If it's May or January through May, that's the legislative session. So that's your primary focus. Right now, it is first part of September. School is starting a lot of back to school activities, a state fair, a lot of athletic events are starting. So it just kind of depends. Yesterday, we started the day off with Colonel Butler, the wing commander of Whiteman Air Force Base, did a 2-hour tour of campus. And so to meet with him and his wife and staff and tour them around campus was fun. Later today, I'm going to go to Whiteman Air Force Base. And then we have a ribbon cutting for a new airport terminal at UCM on later this week. And so all of those are big events. They're important to the university. And so those are fun. but they require a lot of work. All of those took literally weeks, if not months, to set up in order to have a successful event.
Well, they do sound like fun. And that is a fun part of the job, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, right. Getting to meet with people and working together to have successful events and things like that. They just don't just happen. I mean, it takes a lot of work, a lot of planning to make them come off successful.
Absolutely. Well, there are so many details involved in something like that. And I know what pride you take in doing a good job. So you want everything to come off perfectly, which sometimes is hard. Sometimes you can't control the weather. You can't control that individual that's supposed to be there that decides that they can't get there for whatever reason. And so you have to, sort of shake and bake. But yeah, those events, they're a fun part of, I think, the careers that we chose to go into.
Yeah. Kind of a mindset for me on events like that is 95% of the work is done before the event starts. 95%. So the day of the event, just show up and have fun and enjoy talking to people, be gracious. I mean, just have a good time. I've seen so many people who are so nervous or so caught up in the day, they don't enjoy it. And I think then the people that come to it or participate in it, they sense that. If you're uptight or you're worried or you're mad, the people that show up, they get a sense that something's not right. So just enjoy those things. And there's always going to be something that's unexpected, so just deal with it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Well, that's a great mindset. I think about the state fair, and, our agency has been fortunate to work with the Missouri State Fair for, most of the last, somebody asked me that the other years, most of the last 25 years.
A long time, yeah.
A long time. And, we love that relationship. We all love the fair. But, they always say, oh, it's fair time. You guys got to be swamped. You got to be so busy. And just like that special event, our work's pretty well done by the time the fair rolls around. In fact, we're already working on the next year at that time. So it's our opportunity to get out there and enjoy it just like you do and to have some fun, just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you talk about not being able to control some things, the state fair. I mean, so much is out of your hands. The weather, a storm, the mud that you had this year, an act cancels, who knows? So, but yeah, you do your preparation and then enjoy it when it happens.
Yeah, you go with the flow. It turns out. Well, you mentioned living in rural America, living in rural Missouri. What do you like about that?
Oh, I love living in rural Missouri. We live about a mile outside of town, and just the nature, the calm, the quiet. I am in a constant battle with deer over my garden, and the deer are winning.
They always do.
They always do. We live in a jungle with the deer, so they're going to win. And maybe just a more of a relaxed pace, knowing your neighbors, being in a smaller community. I guess that's what I like. And yet Kansas City is an hour away. Springfield, St. Louis, Des Moines, they're not that far away. So if I need the amenities of a big city, it's right there. And, for me, it's where I grew up too. So having the roots and being a part of that, I mean, that means a lot.
So when you were down in the legislature, and of course, I guess you still are really because you're doing government affairs for the university, at what point when you leave that go environment of Just City, do you feel like I'm back home, back relaxed? Is there some point along the way where you have that feeling?
Yeah. You would go to Jefferson City on a Monday morning and come home on a Thursday night. And so where do you debrief? Where do you kind of relax and things? For me, I would always come home through the Knob State Park and drive through the Knob State Park. And it was so beautiful. And that was kind of when I thought, okay, I'm home. And I always tried to make a trek through Knob State Park. So that's a beautiful place, and you talk about rural Missouri, thousands of people enjoy that every year. It's just a gem that we have right next door.
Yeah. And we have so many great state parks.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
It's amazing. We actually, we're recording this the week after Labor Day. We spent the weekend in Echo Bluff down in Eminence, Missouri, floating and enjoying the river and the beautiful wildlife, wild horses down there, also bears and elks and all that. We did not see any of those, but what a beautiful place. It's just remarkable what our state has been able to do with its park system. They are a crown jewel for citizens, but also, people from all over the world.
Right.
Well, the focus of our podcast each week is marketing to rural America. And you're an old marketing guy. So as you look at what's happening today in the world of marketing, advertising, public relations, online, what do you see out there that you think is really cool or effective?
Well, I kind of think we ain't seen nothing yet, when it comes to social media. And I think it's exciting. We're on the cusp of some exciting things that are going to happen. I think it's very important to be engaged in social media, maybe not do everything, but maybe do a few things and do it well and find out what that niche is going to be, but yet be open to other things that are out there. I think it's also important is who is your audience? Is it everybody? Is it freshmen in college? Is it senior citizens? Who are you trying to attract? And then try to go with the social media that fits with that. I think it's important to realize maybe when traditional media doesn't work anymore, and to realize that maybe it's time to change. I still think that the brick and mortar, that events, that billboards and signage is important. And I think it's very important to have a consistent message, a consistent look, a consistent brand, whether that be on your billboard and social media, on Twitter, in podcasts and things like that. In campaigns a few years ago, I would go to campaign schools and they said, billboards are going to be a thing of the past. It's all going to be social media. And yet there's still a lot of billboards, there's still a lot of yard signs, but the emphasis has really gone to social media. And I don't think you could get elected today without having some presence in social media.
I agree with you. It's a great place to tell your story. And, in our business and in most businesses, particularly B2B businesses, we believe that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And social media is such a great way to get to know people and to like what they're all about, to like them as individuals or the philosophies they have or the values that they share, the fun events, and to get to know them and to like them.
And it's instant. It's instant. Cliff, when you and I started years ago, you'd have to send the photos off to get developed. And then in radio, you would physically have to edit a piece of tape. And now that stuff is instant. Within a minute of taking a photo, it can be up. You can edit this podcast immediately after it's over, not having to spend literally hours doing things. So it's instant. On the other hand, you can make some big mistakes instantly. And sometimes it would have been better had you used a little bit of caution and a little bit of pausing before you hit the send button.
Absolutely. It's scary. There is certainly a risk. And, there's a big risk in social media. But, you made a couple of really great points, particularly as it relates to social media, but really for all marketing and advertising. There are so many different ways to get your message out and to tell your story. And it's hard to really do everything and do it well. And so focusing on your audience and going to where they are and then doing a good job of what you do. You don't have to do everything, but do a good job of what you do. Be thorough and comprehensive. That's really where the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
That was really great advice. Now, I know, it's talking about storytelling. I think you told me one time that you keep a journal, do you not?
Oh, I do. I keep a journal.
Yeah. Have you been doing that a long time, right?
I've done it every day since I was 22 years old. And so a journal or a diary. And so typically what I do is in the morning, first thing in the morning, I'll write about what happened the day before. And then I just journal. And every year I have a different book. So 2023 is on a red journal and I'll put it on the bookshelf at the end of the year. So it's just, for me, it's a way of grounding. It's a way of reflecting on what happened the day before, writing down the highlights. And then typically on January 1st of the next year, I go through and read what I did the year before. And then I'll write down what were the 10 or 15 highlights of myself, my wife, my kids, what happened in the community and things like that. So it's just a way of being grounded, I'd say. So
I love that.
And you'll be in it. Cliff, you'll be in tomorrow's version. So you made
I have arrived.
Yeah.
Let's see, the memoirs of David Pearce. What is that book? What is that book going to be called?
Well, I don't think it's going to be on Amazon. So And yeah, and a lot of it's just what happened, you know, the temperature, the storm that came through last night, the deer that ate my watermelon, you know, just different things like that. But to me, it's fun. And then we can look back, like sometimes, my wife will say, "What did I serve for Thanksgiving last year?" You know, so just things like that. And quite honestly, there's some very, very days that were tough to write, you know, like when your parents died. What was the funeral like? What were some things? So it's also sometimes tough to write things, but I think it's important to do that. Where were you? What were you thinking? Who are the people that are part of your lives on that day?
Gosh, that's your archive going back all those years. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations for doing that. Keep it up.
I see no reason to stop now, you know, so I've been doing it for quite a while. So
I'm going to have to stay in touch more often so I can get name dropped once or twice. And, you know, I do want to make a point for our audience about connections and making connections and keeping connected. You know, you and I have known each other a long time. We don't see each other often, but anytime I do, you're the old friend I remember from way back. And that means a lot to me. And one of my favorite sayings, David, and you've probably never heard me say this, but I say it all the time, is you never know. You never know how somebody you met 30 years ago could impact your life today. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You never know what's going to happen today. And so, you know, live life to the fullest, plan for tomorrow, but live for today, and maintain those friendships and relationships that you make over the years.
yeah, those connections are so important. And I really see a lot of those coming to fruition now that I'm at the university. And going along with you never know, I always treat interns and folks that work for me very nice, because they could be my boss someday. I mean, you just never know. So I think that's really, really good advice. You know, I hear some people talk about the good old boy network or whatever, and they disparage that. Well, to me, it's all about connections, and it's about developing those relationships and then utilizing them when it's beneficial for both of you. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but those relationships really, really pay off.
Worth every minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have really appreciated reconnecting today and visiting with you. And gosh, you've had so much insight and great advice for our audience. What else would you like to share with them today that you think they might find interesting or maybe inspiring?
I think it's important to keep a good mix of career and family in your job and your career. Work hard, and yet have a good balance so that when you go home, you can enjoy your family. When your career's over, you have a family to go home to, and yet you can still have some good memories of what you did in the world of work. So to have a good balance, I think is very important.
I think that's great advice. Hey, David, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to talk to you, Cliff, and reminisce, and I'm glad to be a part of the podcast.
Same here. Folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with David Pearce, Head of Government Relations at the University of Central Missouri. Come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.